Good afternoon, and welcome to the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder's Business Podcast. I'm James.L.stroudjr, writer, photographer, and today host. So, uh, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk to a real important person in Minnesota, and I can see she's getting nervous at me building up her name and everything. Her name is Kayla Schuchman. Did I say that right,
You
Kayla?
got it. That's
I
right.
got it. And she's the assistant commissioner of housing for the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. And just so that we give you an idea of the job she has and who she works for, the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency (MHFA) was established in 1971 by the Minnesota State Legislature to address the growing need for affordable housing in Minnesota. The agency's mission is to provide a safe, decent, and affordable housing for low and moderate income Minnesotans, especially those who are vulnerable, such as elderly, disabled, and low income families. And today, Kayla's going to share with us uh, some of the special programs that she has a target group that can probably benefit from those programs. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say, Kayla. And first, just before we start, tell me a little bit about. I read it, but I want you to share it with the audience for the listening and viewing audience. Uh, what I noticed you have an extensive background in housing and the responsibility. So share a little bit about you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Well, thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the assistant commissioner for single family at Minnesota Housing. So my role is to oversee all homeownership focused activities for the agency, from our mortgage and down payment assistance programs to homeownership advising and counseling to foreclosure prevention on the back end. Um, and I've been in this role for going on 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pleasure and a privilege to do this work and to lead an amazing team and to collaborate with great partners across the state. I came to this work from the city of St. Paul. I was a housing director there for 3 years under Mayor Melvin Carter,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
Mel.
it did got to really do some great work for the city of St. Paul under his vision and really advancing um, a vision around home ownership and rental housing to really center people and to implement the city's new housing trust fund that the mayor had proposed and funded.
Mm-hmm.
So that was amazing work. Um, I have an experience in working across really the housing continuum, working on financing new affordable rental housing, experience working as a developer of affordable rental housing.
Was
So
that with the Minnesota Housing Finance
that
Agency?
was with a nonprofit. Yeah, and I have sat on several boards, nonprofit boards, and just really had the privilege of learning from great leaders and understanding affordable housing challenges and policy from lots of different angles. So yeah, I sometimes can't believe I've been in housing for 20 years because I don't think of myself as having had that long of a career, but the gray hair is a reminder that 20 years has passed since I graduated from college and landed in housing, and I really enjoy the work. And I think for me, I didn't have a master plan to get into housing when I
Mm-hmm.
left school, but I knew I wanted to do something with my economics degree
Mm-hmm.
that would really connect to helping the community. And I think housing was, you know,
Yeah.
obviously a key part of everyone's journey, but it really meant a lot to my family over the years. And I think I knew kind of in sort of somewhere inside that that this work would mean something.
It. in my view, I looked at it. I agree with you, first of all. And I looked at it years ago and I said, you know what? Most people who are working, whether it's nonprofit, for profit, or they're in banking, they don't realize that, say, a lot of times we talk about disparities, we talk about affordable housing, and we talk about homelessness and how to deal with that. But since you'll probably agree with this, you're an economics major. So you may or may not have looked at it the same way, but I see housing development as economic development, as a
Absolutely.
key central uh, element to the economy. Is
Yeah.
and so it right off from day one it means something, and it still does. So, and
Agreed.
yes,
I think housing is, investing in housing is a way to invest in strong communities, to strong economies, strong schools. We all need housing, and focusing on, career or education when you don't have stable housing is not going to happen. It's housing first, and then you have a platform to go to school. You have a platform to study at night. You have a platform to think about what comes next after tomorrow. Yeah.
and when if you track the tentacles of what you just said, for example, and having been a licensed teacher, and we look at test scores, we look at behavior patterns, we look at stable housing, some of the kids who are coming to school from the shelter,
Mhm.
and how that trauma or
Yeah.
whatever they're experiencing impacts them. And if they have stable housing, there's no substitute for that.
Yeah.
So, and it definitely is a value added to their focus and mindset when it comes to just schoolwork. So, I mean, we can go and the tentacles go on, but it
Yeah.
comes back down to having stable housing is so important.
Agreed. Agreed. I think it really is at the foundation.
Hmm. So, you came today to share with us. Is this your pet project or this? They say it's your lane. So when I talk with the folks at your agency who set this interview up, they
Yes.
say, "Oh
Yes.
no, no, no. So we had a couple of programs, but we want Kayla to come there and share with you about this program. She's
Yes.
in charge.
Yes.
So I want to hear about this."
Well, I can't claim credit for this being my pet project.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of community voices that advocated for
Mm.
this program. So the first generation homebuyer down payment assistance program really was, brainchild and baby that had a lot of hands and community around bringing it into this world. And it was a part of the 2023 legislative session. There was a strong recognition that housing is really critical, and an investment in housing, you know, above $1 billion, which is unlike anything we've ever seen.
Mhm.
So included in that was the first generation homebuyer down payment assistance, and um,
So that's what we're talking about. The
that's what we're
first
talking.
time buyer.
First generation
Okay.
homebuyer.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So Minnesota Housing received $50 million to stand up a first generation homebuyer down payment assistance program. And there was another first generation homebuyer program that was also set up coming out of that funding. So there are two programs out there, and since the legislative session ended, the team was put in a lot of work and effort to
Mhm.
get that program up and running. We launched Minnesota Housing's first generation homebuyer loan program May 6th
Of
of
this
this
year.
year.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So really glad to be here today because it's such an amazing investment in homeownership and in really recognition of the deep disparities that we have in the state around homeownership
Mhm.
and the importance of addressing that.
Okay.
So we know that, we have consistently have one of the worst homeownership gaps in the country
Mhm.
between white households and households of color, and in particular Black households. So while we have one of the highest overall rates of homeownership, and white households in our state own homes at roughly 80%, Black households own at a rate of roughly 30%.
Mhm.
So that's a really large gap. And we know that homeownership is one of the biggest contributors to wealth in our country. There are a lot of different ways to do it, but the most common way for families is through homeownership and passing down that wealth. So,
One of my favorite words, bequeath.
yes, yes. And, passing down that wealth, helping out a kid or a grandkid with the down payment, the down payment to buy that first home. And so, addressing that gap in wealth and that gap in the ability to put a down payment on is something that we can do as a state to address the homeownership gap.
How's it different than the other programs that you had
Yeah.
relate to, for example, the
The,
okay, so
we've got the first time home buyer.
yeah, and actually, I was working in Edina as a mortgage banker and O2, and we had Minnesota Housing Finance Agency loans that we did,
Mhm.
and so that assistance was very helpful for some people.
Yes. Yes.
And so, how's that one?
Yeah.
This different than that one?
So both are really important. The first generation homebuyer program is a loan that provides up to $35,000 of down payment assistance.
Okay.
And it is forgivable, half forgiven at 10 years and the other half forgiven at 20 years. Now, that first generation homebuyer loan can pair with Minnesota Housing standard programs. So, our first time homebuyer mortgage and down payment assistance that's longstanding. It's been around since, even longer than 2002. So, the two work together to provide, home buyers up to potentially $53,000 towards a down payment.
So let's go back over that again. So for the folks in the cheap seats,
Mhm.
um, so the total amount of money for the initial purchase would be about 55,000, but it's partnered with two programs. One 35,000. That's the first generation home buyer down payment,
Yep.
and that's 35,000.
Yep.
And if you don't sell the house and you stay there for 10 years, half of that will be forgiven.
That's
If
right.
you stay there and say you're not going to sell, you are going to get the other half cleared after 20 years.
Mhm.
And uh, then the second one, let's go over that again. So the second one that
Yeah.
partners with that is what?
So that's our first time home buyer program called
Okay, the
Startup.
startup.
Yep.
Got it.
So that's our affordable mortgage program for first time home buyers.
20,000.
And we've got up to
Okay,
$18,000 of down payment that goes
sure.
with that. So a total, depending on your circumstances, you could be eligible for up to $53,000 in down payment assistance.
And tell me this. So there are other programs. I just did a front page story on the 20th anniversary of Build Wealth Minnesota.
Yeah.
And there are different um, organizations that are working with other organizations.
Mhm.
So if someone shows up with this, can they invite anyone, any other agency or other opportunity to assist them in getting to the finish line or
They can.
closing, should I say?
Yes, absolutely. So if anyone is working with, Build Wealth or another nonprofit or a county that may have down payment assistance available, they can be layered.
Mm-hmm.
So, one first generation homebuyer loan, one, Minnesota Housing Startup Program
Mm-hmm.
loan and down payment can be layered with community down payment assistance sources that are out there. So, we encourage people to look at this opportunity there really are a lot of resources out there right now. And we are, hearing from our network of nonprofit homeownership advisors that
Mhm.
people are putting that to good use and layering them together. And we ultimately we want people to be able to afford home ownership
Mhm.
whose families have been shut out of that opportunity in the past, due to just intentional discrimination, legacies of, redlining, and all
Mhm.
of the reasons that we got to this disparity. Sometimes it takes a little bit more.
Now, let me ask you this. This is a interesting thought I just had. So I remember having to refinance someone who had one of the loans where they have um, conditions on them, and then so for the listening audience, your main mortgage is your first position, and then anything after that is second or even third. So can it get tricky with any of those nonprofits or agencies that have um, the conditional sort of loan, meaning based on, oh, after 7 years, if you're doing repairs and then we clear it, but
Yeah.
they only do second position and you already have second position, or how do you work that out?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and it can get tricky. I think the really important part is that home buyers understand what all of the restrictions are.
Mm-hmm.
So even if get them to work together on the front end, and you've got, your first generation home buyer loan from Minnesota Housing, and you've got, nonprofit providing down payment assistance, and maybe there's something through the city of Minneapolis, and you want to make sure that you understand the terms of all of those loans. When you get down the road 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, will you have to repay it back? What will this mean to your equity position? I think it is a really important message that people understand what they're getting into, you know, and really, like, looking at what you need to qualify. Um, so we definitely want people to talk to homeownership advisors to help them navigate, number one, what are the resources that are available that I might access? And number two, what would it mean for me if I access them? Does this make sense with my financial situation and the house that I'd like to buy? Um, for me to be looking at these programs. So I think, kind of eyes wide open. Make sure you understand kind of what you're going into.
Okay. So I got another, what I consider a good question here.
Mm.
So when I worked in the mortgage business, it was out in Edina, and I would, I guess I could say some of the some of the clients were sophisticated in the sense that some of them closed their mortgages
Mm.
in their family trust,
Mm.
right? So my question is, with all of the programs you have and all the education that's going on,
Mhm.
I've yet to see anyone talk about. So although someone is just starting out,
Mhm.
doesn't mean they uh, they're being introduced to a bunch of new stuff, and why not the other option of saying, you want to put your house in the trust, you want to close in the trust. If you get someone who can educate you on that, have you all had that experience where you took it that far, or you just say, well, this may be too much for them to
Mm.
digest?
Well, we work with a network of lenders. So
Mm-hmm.
our lending partners would be, having those conversations with home buyers and, working through what makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I haven't had any direct experience, and our team probably, isn't dealing at that level with folks on kind of what the financial plan is that makes the most sense for them.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got a network of participating lenders with thousands of loan officers who
Mm-hmm.
can help people navigate their needs, whether they're at that level of thinking about, really maximizing wealth and
Mm-hmm.
potential trust, or whether maybe they haven't thought about home ownership. Maybe you're not sure if it's for you or whether you can do this. I mean, I think we really focus on trying to break down barriers and myths for people at that end who don't think it's possible for them. When your parents didn't own and you didn't
Mm-hmm.
grow up in home ownership, it can feel really daunting.
Yes.
Sometimes we talk to people, and we'll hear a rent amount. It's like, have you thought about home ownership?
Mm-hmm.
We want people to know that it can be possible and that the down payment doesn't have to be the barrier.
Well, one of the people that I spoke with at the 20th anniversary in the article, she said that she had talked to her mother one day and said, "Well, what is your mortgage anyway?" And she said her rent was 2 times more than her mother's mortgage, and that's when she said, "Wait a minute, let me." So she said she moved in with her mother, saved some money, got a
Yes.
down payment, got in the program, so her and if you see her on the front page, it's her and her four family members all went through the
Mm.
Bill Wealth program, and they all own a house. So
Oh,
they
that's
were the
great.
money shot for the papers front page. But it was interesting to see. I watched her um, looked in her eyes and she's reminiscing about, yeah.
Hmm.
And I said, no. And she said, sudden stop, right? I'm going. And the reason I asked that question,
Yeah.
though, was because there were people who were coming there who were sophisticated, but they also they don't want to hold their, so they said the days of holding their children's hand across the street is way over.
Yes.
They want their kids to experience some of this stuff on their own, but they don't want to. They don't want to. They don't want to push too much. But that was something that they had asked if this seed was planted because the kids know that their family has a trust
Mm.
and they come to the table even though they're new
Hmm.
and need to absorb a bunch of basic information about the process, and but that in the back of their mind because their parents,
Yeah.
this is a parent who was one of my clients who showed their kids what they pay for lights and everything and all this stuff and told them about the trust, and so the kid was thinking, well, when I go I'm going to do the same thing, so that's why I
Mhm.
asked that question. So
Yes, yes. And I think, we learn so much from our families of
mm-hmm,
origin
mm-hmm,
and the expectations that they set for us. And it can be, I think, a really big barrier to do things differently than your family did. So if you're if you're teaching your children,
mm-hmm,
the importance of financial planning and, setting up a trust
mm-hmm,
and home ownership, they're eh, going to college. I mean, it's sort of the expectations that you set for your kids are the things that they know in, when they go out on their own. And so I think, we really have the ability to support people kind of on both ends of the spectrum.
mm-hmm.
The income limit for this program it's not, just for people with really low income. It goes quite high.
Give me a range. What is that?
It's roughly $140,000, depending on household size and things.
Mm-hmm.
So
And the credit score, minimum.
um, there's so many factors there, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not just for people with perfect credit. So
Okay.
um,
580.
don't screen yourself out.
Okay.
Don't screen yourself out. And in fact, I would even say if Minnesota Housing's, program can't serve you, there's another first generation program available. There's folks like Build Wealth doing really great work to
Mm-hmm.
um, build credit, repair credit.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let a credit score stop you. Make the call and figure out what your path is. Some people who hear about our programs call and find out they're ready today,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't know. And some people, get connected to an advisor who can really help them build a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not today, maybe it's not tomorrow, maybe it's 2 months, maybe it's 6 months.
So, l- um, walk me through this. This person that's listening who's going to make the call, are they going to, because it depends on where you call, you're going to get trapped into um, either the voicemail and, this automated bot, an AI um, person or thing telling you to go through all these changes.
Yeah.
And then before you speak to someone, I don't know if that's what they experience when they call you, or should they go straight to the website, or is there an orientation schedule for the rules of engagement that you
Yeah.
have scheduled that's on the website that we can
Yeah.
share with them?
You're right. I think the website's the best place to start.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go to mnhousing.gov/get ready, and that'll take you to a link. Um, there's a lot of homeownership advisors to choose from.
Let's do this one more time.
Yeah,
mnhousing.gov. Is that forward
that's right.
slash after that?
That's a good question. Do I? It's like this. How do we say that?
Let's see.
Is that forward slash?
Yes.
Thank you.
Minnesota is www.mnhousing, that's housing, .gov/get ready, one word, .html. Okay, so, and that's the first generation home buyer loan program, huh?
That's right.
Go. So, go straight to that site, um, and then after that, the question I had, the part two to that question was, is there a schedule out there for where they can meet a human
Yeah.
at a, let's say, a session, a learning session about, and maybe, well, I used to see one of my friends, she's no longer with us, Cheryl Rice, who was, God rest her soul.
Yes.
We'll see her at Juneteenth, whatever they had a table. And
Yes.
always look forward to seeing Cheryl and her sister. And but yeah, she was there for years.
She
So
was. She was.
yeah, so
We miss Cheryl.
so what are the days? Is it every week? Is it once a month? What's the schedule for
Yeah.
anyone interested?
So the nonprofit partners that do the classes, they have classes throughout the state. A lot of them host them with different partners.
Who are your main partners?
Oh, well, there's a lot. We've got PRG, South
PRG.
Minneapolis. We've
Mhm.
got
And that acronym stands for?
well, I think that their name they used to focus in Powderhorn and they've since expanded,
Ah,
but it was Powderhorn Residence Group, I think.
okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Powder Home Residence Group. Okay.
Yep. So
Just
we've got community people rooted in neighborhoods, and we've also got some of the bigger providers,
mm-hmm.
Lutheran Social Service. So there's a variety of partners. If you're busy, if you've got kids that just started school last week and getting to a class is hard, there's online options. If you're
Mm-hmm.
somebody who wants to be face to face and wants the ability to kind of talk, directly to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
there's classes in person. And, you know, you mentioned Cheryl, and I'll tell the whole Minnesota housing team you mentioned that. They'll love to hear that.
Yeah.
Um, but we've got a team who goes out to events in the community also. So I saw the postcards for the Jazz Fest, and
Oh yeah.
we'll have a
You
table
do
at
hear
the
that.
Jazz Fest. So we've got Minnesota Housing has people out, and then the nonprofits that we partner with do their own sessions, and you can find all of that on the website.
Now, don't think that I'm related to Nostradamus when I say this, or psychic or anything, but I got a feeling that there's somebody who would listen to this and they've got a question about what do I need to save up? I hear about I need to save up money. Now, I'm not talking about the people who have already been taking classes. I'm talking about people who don't have a clue that they are ready,
Yeah.
and they are hearing this and they're saying, "Well, I'm looking to see how ready I am." But meanwhile, well, I know I got some money on me, But how close am I? What I need? I mean, I'm curious to find out. Before I want to go on this website, I want to hear more. Hopefully,
Mhm.
they'll say it while I'm listening. So,
Yes.
what is it that
Yes.
they have to come up with?
Well, I think people think about saving up a 20% down payment. And
Okay.
it's not a 20% down payment that you need to save up. I didn't save that up when I bought my house.
Well, first of all, 20% of what? Meaning whatever they qualify for, they have to first get qualified
So,
or get to see how much house they can buy, and then
yeah.
save up 20% of.
So conventional lenders, like the typical lender that is not serving first-time home buyers, they do mortgage lending where a home buyer needs to come to the table with 20% of their purchase price cash. And because that's conventional lending, that kind of is the the rumor out there that, I think some of us learn like that we're supposed to save 20% of our
Mhm.
purchase price before we start looking for a house. In today's market, that would be a lot of money.
Yeah, especially when there's like FHA, when I
Yes,
started what was it before I got out of the mortgage business, '07. I was '02 to '07. They were starting one where it's 97.3 or 100%,
exactly.
where you only come up with 3%, and then
Yes.
um,
So you don't necessarily need that 20%. So I like to address that because I know that I had that in my head before I bought, and a lot of people think, oh yeah, I need that 20% down payment. There's products,
but it
there's
looks good when you have money
well,
saved up
if
too.
you've got 20% down, good on you.
And especially if you go on FHA, once it goes into the system and they see your net worth and the other
Yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
and it's something I have to share this for anybody who's going to listen, because a lot of times people don't talk about it enough. If you're doing FHA, I watched someone who was skilled when I got there. Some of those people had over 30 years of experience when I showed up. I was one of only two black folks out of the 22 people who were there working
Mm.
in the Edina office, and it was a company called United Residential Mortgage. They no longer, they moved on to something else, but changed the name, sold it. Doing the FHA loan or doing a one of the loans for the folks,
The
military,
VA.
VA. There
VA.
you go.
Yeah.
They can take. They'll ask you to take. So, what is your dinette set worth? What is what you got your jewelry? You have your clothing. You have your computers. You have they add up all of your stuff. It may not mean anything in a commercial. I mean, not a
Hmm.
commercial, but I mean in a traditional lending thing.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
loan, but for FHA or VA, when they run it in the system and they show your net worth based
Mhm.
on all those things, that those assets, and
Yep.
plus your savings,
Yep.
when they hit for approval, I've seen where
Mm.
folks on the border with like a 624 middle score,
Mm.
625, got approved.
Mm.
And I'm not, and I don't want. Did we do the disclaimer? I need to do a disclaimer for what I just said
Mm.
there. This was then. I don't know how it works now, but I'm just saying I witnessed it. And they were this person was very skilled. So I was watching and shadowing her, and she had years of experience. And her thing was anytime someone in the office was doing FHA or VA loan, they talked to her because
Mhm.
she had figured out
Yep.
as if she almost wrote the program for the approval. So, but
Yes. Yes.
but those things are,
Yeah.
are very important for people. Everything is very um, tailored for each person's. No, even though one person thinks that their credit report, because they got the same score as their dad, you
Mhm.
don't have the same stuff on there and the same years and all that stuff.
Yes, yes, and it depends on the house you're buying and how much your loan is. So there's so many factors, and I used FHA when I bought my house. I
Mhm.
didn't have any assets, so I don't know, I don't know the
Yeah.
details. But FHA's
Did you get your refund?
uh
A lot of people are sitting. and they don't know that they have a FHA refund.
We're gonna need to talk about that after.
Yes. You should. Oh, I didn't mean to like put that on blast.
No,
I'm
no.
saying I'm encouraging you to look into it. Is what I'm really saying, because
No,
many
I
people
appreciate
didn't
that.
know that they
Yeah.
have a VA or FHA refund.
Mm,
After everybody gets one. There's a
mm,
little something there,
mm.
um, and that's when there were people who started going on these infomercials, getting the package to do skip tracing, so they could track people down, try to negotiate to say, "Hey, I found where you had some money. I get 10% of this
Yeah, yeah.
if
Uh,
you let me process it for you." So
yes,
then they
yes.
tell them where they got the money, because HUD used to publish a list of all the people who had refunds nationwide.
Mm.
So
So they'd be out.
so
Yeah.
people make money off of helping people find money they didn't even know they had in
Yes,
their names.
yes. Well, and we did refinance, so I don't know, but you know.
But it still should be there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
so
okay. We'll see. I might be learning here things that I need to
take a note.
but it's good for people to know about FHA. And so FHA can lower the down payment that you need. And then, you add,
You all can partner your.
and then we can partner our down payment assistance. So it's not a 20% down payment. I mean, you we want people to have some cash on hand.
Mhm.
We want them to have, some level of reserves when
Yeah,
they're going into home ownership, and understand
for their benefit,
for
not
their
for
benefit.
just for you to approve them, but
Hmm.
for their benefit, so
Yeah,
that they have a cushion
yeah,
in the
yeah.
event something comes up, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So it's not zero cash, but it's not 20%.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I think it really can be within reach for people in a way that maybe they don't know about. And, for others, like, you might have a journey to get there, but there are people who can help you figure out what that looks like.
Sure.
So pick up the phone if that's your style, go on the website and do it over, email, go to a session in person. Like, there are so many different ways to meet with somebody who can help you, talk through your situation.
So have you ever showed up when they were doing some of the community outreach, and participated, and what
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
what is your elevator speech to people to try to get them to
Mhm.
participate?
Well, I am not the one with the best elevator
Okay.
speech, but I think mostly just helping people to understand that homeownership can be within reach. And if you're interested, if you dream about it, if you've thought about it,
Hmm.
talk to a homeownership advisor,
Hmm.
talk to a lender. There are people who have a lot of experience, like you said,
Hmm.
working with, um, y- you know, buyers that maybe don't have a lot of assets or maybe have issues with credit,
Hmm.
and figuring out that path. So, um,
And would you say to the people who think, well, yeah, I'm gonna rush right in. I want to go ahead and get out of this apartment, and I don't need those classes. I've been
mhm,
reading up online.
mhm. That's,
There's
yeah,
some things that they might miss along the way that
yeah.
they'll
That's
hit
what I
that
did when
crash.
I bought. And
Really?
I bought my house. I think at the time I didn't realize how young I was, but I was young. And
Okay.
um, I wished that, in hindsight, I think those classes are so important.
Yes.
So important,
That's why I said it, because there's some
Yes.
people out there who don't take the classes, and then later on
Yes.
they miss out on some valuable.
Yeah.
Uh,
If I were to do it today,
mhm.
even having owned a home, I would take the class.
And there was another thing I learned was that if you sold a house or lost a house
Hmm.
through foreclosure, and 3 years, it was supposed to be after 3 years, that person is considered a first-time home buyer.
That's right. That's right.
Let me say that again for the folks in the cheap seats. Um, if you ever own a home, and if you sold it or you lost it due to foreclosure or divorce, had to sell, and you're renting, and you are well, age is relative. You might call yourself old if you're 66 like me, but I don't. We're all
Mhm.
babies compared to Moses, Methuselah, and Noah. So, but anyway, you can qualify for as a first time home buyer. So all these little
Yeah.
nuances that a lot of people are always counting themselves out
Yep.
before they see themselves in. So
Yes. I think that's a really nice elevator pitch.
yeah.
And I think, it's true with the first generation home buyer program too.
Mhm.
If you if you lost your home due to foreclosure, eh, or you never owned, and your parents never owned, or they lost their home to foreclosure. So, it actually can help people whose family has been impacted by the foreclosure crisis. We know that, 2007, 2008, 9, those years impacted people of color more substantially.
Mhm.
And so it's
Just like
important
the pandemic.
just so I think, if you owned but lost your home,
Mhm.
know that you might be able to qualify as a first time home buyer and a first generation home buyer.
And something just came to me. I said, it's not even related to that, but it's related to something we talked about a few minutes ago, which is, um, so I just got a memory of a client who, this is not something everybody does. So I'm gonna share this for some who may want to. Some parent who says, well, one of my kids is going to be coming out of college and they've got a nice job waiting for them, but you know what? We didn't set them. They don't have any credit. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times there are some people who
Mm-hmm.
put their kids on their credit card, but don't give them the physical card.
Mm-hmm.
You heard
Mm-hmm.
that?
I haven't. No.
Well, they
Yeah.
do that, and then you share the card, your score, if
Yeah.
both on if you got good credit. Now, if you got bad credit, don't put your kid on your
Yeah.
card.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's not the strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got good credit
Mm-hmm.
and you manage it well, and you got a good score, include them on the card. Don't issue them a card.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're gonna buy something with their card and then pay it off and make sure
Yeah.
that
There's
that was a couple of the folks that came into the shop did that with their child,
mm,
and there's so many other
yeah.
things out there that a seasoned person at one of these nonprofits or
Yes.
mortgage companies will be able to just. I think it's really important that someone who's just starting out finds someone who has some seasoning on
Yeah. Yep.
them. Yeah.
And if you go to our website, you can see our participating lenders and our top lenders, who work with first time home buyers every day. That's part of
Mm,
what they do.
okay.
So I do think that's really important. And if you find a nonprofit that you like working with, they can also help you, figure out what your
The
next
best
step.
way to maximize all this.
And who to talk to next, how to find a lender. So it's a good place to, if you're not sure where to start, if you don't know, what lender to talk to, if you don't know if you're ready, call a homeownership advisor and they can help you think through
And what is
all
homeowner
of that.
advisor's number?
So those are on our website too.
Those
That's
on the
on the,
website. Okay, let's do
yeah,
this again, just
yeah.
for the listening audience. Let's go. The website again is www.mnhousing.gov/, get ready .html, and then the phone number. Um, but
You know.
it's all on the website. So, just go ahead and get trapped on the website and then and navigate your way to the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. And
Yeah. The website will have phone numbers for the advisors, and you can
yes,
find all of that there.
is there any parting words you want to share or thoughts?
Yeah, something we haven't talked about yet is you know, I want to I want people to be aware it is a time limited opportunity. And so the legislature funded the program at $50 million, but one time funding. So we know that homeownership is important. We know that housing is important, and we'll see what happens in the coming year. But the funds are going fast. So if you um, if you if you're interested, if you've dreamt of this, look at the website tonight,
Are there
tomorrow.
any extra uh, benefits for? You mentioned in there folks who have disabilities or people who are teachers or those are different programs.
Yeah, our startup program and some of our down payment assistance does consider, I think, people with disabilities, size of a household, a few other
Sure.
factors.
Okay.
And I want people to know it's time limited and to really,
And when
put it on the top of your list.
based on first come first serve, and when the
Exactly.
money's run out.
Exactly.
And it
Yes.
started in May
It started in May.
and could end like after this show airs.
It
After folks start filling out those forms.
It's hard to say.
Hard to say.
Interest rates, I know everybody's watching what the Federal Reserve will do, and if interest rates fall, more people might call. But so, do take a look if you're interested, but I also don't want people to be discouraged because like we talked about at the beginning, we're not the only first generation homebuyer program. Um, there's another program. You can find information on that program at firstgendpa.org. That's being run by a nonprofit partner. So, even when Minnesota Housing's program does run out of money, there's another program out there that's
Great.
going to be running for a while.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this was fun.
Yes, this was fun.
Kayla Schuchman,
That's right.
um,
That's right.
Assistant Commissioner, Single Family for Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. And on behalf of Kayla and the good folks here at the Minnesota Spokesman-Recorder, I'm James.L.Stroudjr. And thank you for listening.